No, should we look at those two?
Yeah, I know.
It might be posted too. Second.
And then write it
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Call vote, Mrs. Damon.
Mrs. Wheeler. Here. Dr. Wagley. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Kunkel. Here. Mr. Kenwish.
Here.
Mr. Ayers.
Here.
And Mrs. Blackman.
Here. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any questions regarding this evening's agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Canwisher. The agenda is approved as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Vision statement. It is the vision of the Pleasant Valley Community School District to provide the finest academic and extracurricular programs in the state, not in some things, but in everything, not for some students, but for every student. I'd like to welcome our guests tonight. If there is any guest that would like to address the board on a non-agenda item, now would be your opportunity to do so. Go ahead and come forward. We'd ask that you state your name and your affiliation with the district, and please refrain from using any specific names to protect others' privacies, and if you could make your statement in 3 minutes, that's appreciated.
No problem. Hi, my name is Maggie Claudy. I'm here to bring forth the scheduling concerns of the Piranha Swim Club, as previously addressed in my email to each of the board members. I only ask that this issue be addressed in a prompt manner. Currently, there are no practices scheduled at the high school following the conclusion of spring break. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? All right, I will go to board members. Director Smith.
Pass for this evening.
Thank you. Director Canwisher.
I appreciate, Ryan, having looked into my question, that if Trump eliminates the Department of Education, what the budget impact would be. For those of you not in the know, it'd be a 7-figure impact. Thanks again for that info.
Thank you. Director Wheeler.
I have nothing.
Director Ayers.
I have nothing, thank you.
Director Kunkel.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bretzkern.
I do have a little recognition.
I'm actually going to come back to you. We're going to end on a really positive note.
That sounds good. I have a few other things too that I can mention. I didn't know if you wanted me to say that before or after.
Okay, we'll just come back to you totally.
That sounds good.
All right, Mrs. Kenyon.
Are we saving the best for last?
Well, we kind of are
That's okay.
tonight.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I'm
That's all
sorry.
right. I have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Klingsmith?
I do actually have one thing tonight. It is also some good news, maybe not as good news as we're going to be sharing here in a little bit, but also some very good news that the district received last week. We heard back from Standard & Poor's, that is the company that gives us a rating on our bonds that we have outstanding. Bonds are what we issue to borrow money in the school district. We had what's called a ratings review with Standard & Poor's, and we found out last week that as part of that ratings review, they upgraded our rating from a AA- to a AA rating. I'm going to read just briefly here what our financial advisor, Matt Gillespie from from Piper Sandler had to say about that upgrade in the rating. The committee met last week. Their analysis took a bit longer than usual because they wanted to be able to potentially upgrade your rating, and that is exactly what they did. This is very good news. They will be upgrading the district sales tax bond rating from their AA- rating to a AA. Then he says, I have not seen an Iowa school get a rating that high since S&P changed their rating methodology about 2 years ago. So this is particularly good news, showing that an Iowa school can indeed receive a rating higher than the AA- level. There were several aspects that enabled them to get this upgrade. Wealth and income levels in the PV district are above statewide averages. You have had solid and consistently sound financials for quite some time, having maintained good reserve levels in your general fund, etc. So that's the comments that we got from our financial advisor at Piper Sandler, and I think everybody has met Matt Gillespie and knows who I'm talking about. So again, this is very good news for the district. The hope is that by getting this higher bond rating, if we borrow money in the future, it could lead to lower interest rates when we borrow in the future. So just wanted to share that with the board. You have the official letter from Standard & Poor's in the board packet if you look at that. So that's all I had.
Thank you, that's great news.
Thank you.
And appreciate all your work. I know that you, for years, have done a wonderful job with our financials, and a lot of that is through your work. So
All right.
we really appreciate that, and your team. You always give your team a lot of credit.
Yeah,
So.
I'll give them credit too. So thank you very much.
All right. Low interest rates are good.
Yep. If you're paying.
That's right. Ms. Zinn. All right, and Mr. Hyatt.
Just a thank you to our teachers for conference preparation at the elementary grade levels. They'll be engaging in our parent-teacher conferences in the coming weeks. So
Sounds
thanks to
good.
parents, students, teachers.
Absolutely. Okay. And Mrs. Damon?
There's an updated personnel agenda, and it includes all the appointments and reappointments for TLS.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I can do it now. That's fine. That's fine. Again, just want to say thank you to Mike's team for all that they have done. I mean, it is truly amazing work and appreciate what they do. And I'll also foreshadow there might be another award coming in the near future for someone in particular as well. So we'll hold off on that and see. So we can announce that later. But again, just very proud of what he's done. And to get that AA rating is very important and very appreciative. So thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Also, I just want to share tonight's that time of year. A special thank you to Robin Funk. Robin Funk has been serving in our food service at the high school for 24 years. She has decided to stop that and retire at the end of the school year. So just amazing work. I always appreciate when you have someone who's with us for that long and being part of our family. So again, thanks to Robin, and wish her all the best after this school year is completed.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Brusskern, back to you.
All right, well, I will start my recognitions tonight with our PV Platinum Dance Team. And I'd like to welcome the team up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Claire Tinsman, the dance team captain, to talk a little bit about the experience at state, as well as start the introductions of the team. And then if you are accompanied by your parents tonight, it would be great if you could introduce them as well. Maybe we could start with name, grade, and then introduction of parents.
Okay, hello, my name is Claire Tinsman. I am a senior, and my parents are Bruce and Sharon Tinsman, and Bruce Tinsman is with me today.
Thank you.
I'm Ellie Yassin. I'm a junior, and my parents are Ism and Amy Yassin in the back corner over there.
I'm Maggie Summers, and I'm a senior. My parents are Jay and Katie Summers, and my mom, Katie's here.
I'm Molly. I'm a senior. My parents are Ryan and Sarah Butcher, and my mom, Sarah, is with me today. I'm Natalia Morales. I'm a senior. My parents are Sandra and Cesar Morales, but they could not make it.
My name is Jacqueline Anderson. I am a senior. My parents are Drew Anderson, Teradar, who are both here.
My name is Alexis Carvarius. I am a junior, and my parents are Trisha and Rob, and they are not here.
Hi, I'm Macy Munn. My parents are Kim and Rob Munn, and they're not here tonight.
I'm Ava Barsness. I'm a junior, and my parents are Val and Jeff, and they're not here tonight.
I'm Millie Makovich. My parents are Jamie and Sarah, and they're not here tonight. And I'm a junior.
I'm Jada Smith. I'm a freshman. My parents are Laura and Chad, and they're not here tonight.
My name's Avery Carey. I'm a freshman, and my parents are Dale and Heather, and they aren't here.
My name's Grace. I'm a freshman, and my parents are Sarah and Scott, and they're not here tonight. My name's Kylie Willman. I'm a freshman, and my parents are Tara and Matt, and they're not here.
I'm Mara. I'm a freshman, and my parents are Dale and Jody Quam, and my dad's.
I'm Morgan Judy. I'm a freshman, and my parents are Jen and Tom.
I'm Callie Bowman. I'm a freshman. My parents are Chad and Christy, and they're not here.
I'm Peyton Clark. My parents are John and Shayla, and they're not here tonight. And I'm a freshman.
I'm Lauren. I'm a sophomore. My parents are Jessica and Chris, and they're not here tonight.
I'm Addie. I'm a junior, and my parents are Nicole Spedale and Rich Spedale, and they are not here tonight.
Talk a little bit about your
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
So our state process is very important to us as a team in Platinum. We start learning our competition routines in June at the start of our summer, and we keep working on them, and then we take a pause to focus really on football season, because that's a big part of our program as well, cheering on our Spartans. And then once that settles down, we really dive into state practice. We're practicing multiple times a week, long practices on Sundays, and we're just putting in all the hours to make sure our routines are the best they can be. We compete in the jazz and the pom categories, both tough and competitive levels, but we put in our best work, and we had really challenging and high energy routines that we were really proud of this year. We worked really hard and put our best energy and foot forward on the state floor this year.
Sure, and they sent us their reading routine today, so we
That marks our 16th program state title and our 6th consecutive POM title, which is really exciting. We just really want to thank you guys for allowing us to come tonight and share a little bit about the work that we do, and we love getting to represent Spartan Nation at state.
Any questions?
The seniors on the team, I don't know how many there are, but we always like to hear kind of if you know what your plans include for next year, if any of you plan to continue to dance, or what you're studying, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Sure. I'm still in the undecided process, heard back from schools and acceptances, still waiting on a couple more, but hoping to attend a four-year university and continue studying dance as well as either business or political science.
Kind of same boat, undecided university, but I would like to continue dancing at the collegiate level, and I've decided to major in business and marketing.
Same boat for me too. I'm planning to continue dancing in college, and I want to major in the medical field. I'm still undecided where I'm going, and I'm majoring in early education.
I'm going to Iowa State and I'm majoring in animal science.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're losing 6 seniors, is that right?
We are losing 6 seniors. Our freshman class, including our JV program, was 20 dancers this year, so we have a really, really young program.
Wow, that's exciting.
So there's a variety of dance studios in the area. I'm wondering, when you all come together, maybe especially as freshmen the first time, is it an easy fit because the training's really similar across them, or are there some like significant skills differences between the different academies?
I feel like it's a really exciting process to get to bond with people from different studios because we're coming together as a school, and throughout the tryout process we're all getting the same preparation. We have lots of open gyms which start actually pretty soon for next season, but we have clinics and we get to work with people already on the team to get prepared, so everyone's kind of given the same starting point, and then we start practices right away. We have a camp over the summer, and especially at camp, that's really where we get to bond and get to learn each other's skills and keep growing as a team and growing our individual skills as well.
Well, girls, overall, just on behalf of the district, congratulations on the continued tradition that you guys have upheld, continue to uphold. You know, and watching your routine, watching you guys hit all your points on your turns and landing at the same time and everything, it is truly, truly amazing.
Your dance, Dad.
You know, I don't know. A lot of years, but you know, and on that note, you know, parents, again, thank you to all you for driving your kids to all those performances for all the years that you've been to. It's a lot of dedication on your part as well, so thanks for doing that. Thanks for helping our girls grow. Freshmen, you have a long tradition to keep moving ahead here. And like you said, your season never ends, it seems like. It always keeps going, so thanks for what you do there. Coaches, the long hours that you put in, just, again, you're on all year round. When it gets done with one season, now you're getting ready for next year ready. So thanks for what you do there, and really appreciate it. And just keep up the hard work. You know, and if you don't win, it's okay, but it's great when you do. But just enjoy yourselves. I mean, this is what this is all about. It's just having fun and representing Pleasant Valley. And when you go to summer camps, you know, you can win the awards for best sportsmanship, whatever that might be. That's huge to us too. Just be yourselves and be fun together. That's the key.
You guys are super fun to watch, and we love watching you throughout the year at football games and then at state, and very, very proud of you. You'll always have these memories to take with you, and I'm glad to hear a lot of you are going to continue to dance.
Just well done.
Thank you.
We can introduce the coaches. That'd be great.
We do need to introduce the coaches.
I'm Katie Rakuzik, I'm the head coach.
I'm Sydney Faust, I'm the JV coach.
I'm Maddie Wells, I'm the assistant coach. Maddie is this is her last season with us, so we're really gonna miss her a lot.
Thank you very much for all your time, Maddie. We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unless you want to stay, now would be a good time to leave.
You still have some more things.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, and Bernie, you had
More things. Yes.
things.
So in September, we were excited to announce that Pleasant Valley had 12 semifinalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. And I am pleased to share this evening that our 12 semifinalists turned into 11 finalists within that. So we are, super excited about the students, and I will update as we hear more. I also wanted to recognize our PD robotics team for advancing to state. I believe they compete this coming Friday and Saturday in Iowa City. The team named Deviation from the Norm won the Inspire Award as well as the captain of the Winning Alliance Award, which are considered the top 2 FTC awards. So congratulations to them and best of luck this weekend. And then I did want to recognize some of our boys swimmers. So on Friday, February 14th and Saturday, February 15th, our boys swim team traveled to participate in state, and we had 6 individual qualifiers and 3 relays qualify for state and participate. We did not have any first, second, or third place finishers, but all of our students represented PV very well and had a good day of swimming. And last but not least, I did want to give Director Kamwisher a shout out. On Friday, he participated in our AI committee meeting, and he was great to have there, and he even took notes for us, which was really nice because I was down a facilitator. So thank you very much for being a part of that, and we're looking forward to sharing what we come up with in terms of our guidelines with the board very soon.
Great. Thank you, Director Kamwisher. That's awesome. All right.
I have one more thing I want to share tonight, and I'm sorry I missed it originally. But earlier this week, we found out that Stephanie Judkins, I don't know if you guys remember Stephanie Judkins, she passed away after 26 years. She had served in our district. She served as a 4th grade teacher in our district, then Dean of Students at Pleasant View and Riverdale Heights, our reading leadership team, which was housed out of this office, and then she was our principal at Hopewell, and then Director of Literacy and Elementary Curriculum her last year. But again, just great fond memories of Stephanie. Thinking of her family, sympathies to her family, and actually her son right now works for the AEA and works with our district as our district person. So that's Patrick Judkins. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the entire family.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions on this evening's consent agenda? If there are no questions, I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Kunkel, that this evening's consent agenda is approved as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to approval of bills. We'll start with general fund.
I move the general fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $1,616,568.10 and payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Kunkel, second by Director Ayers, that general fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nutrition fund.
I move that nutrition fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $58,093.90 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Smith, that nutrition fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Elementary Junior High Activity Fund.
I move that elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $1,055.96 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Smith, second by Director Ayers, that elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? High School Activity Fund.
I move that the high school activity fund warrants be issued in a total amount of $20,567 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Wheeler, that high school activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Capital Projects Fund.
I move the capital project fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $1,088,911.97 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Kanwisher, second by Director Kunkel, that capital project fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pepple Fund, Physical Plant and Equipment Levy Fund.
I move the Pepple Fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $12,044.25 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Kunkel, second by Director Ayers, that Pepple Fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Student Construction Fund.
I move that the student construction fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $80.38 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Smith, that student construction fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Internal Service Fund.
I move that internal service fund warrants 6635 to 6636 and ACH 3264 through 3267 be issued in a total amount of $271,886. $0.75 per payment of invoices presented.
Motion by Director Smith, second by Director Wheeler, that internal service fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Trust Fund.
I move that trust fund warrants be issued in a total amount of $407.16 and payment of invoice presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Wheeler, that trust fund warrants be issued in the total amount of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. There is no old business this evening, so we will move on to new business. And I will turn it over to Mr. Klingman-Smith to visit with us about the property tax levy rate.
All right, so there are two things that we need the board to do in regard to this agenda item tonight. One of them is, you may recall a year ago, the state changed the certified budget process, and now there are two public hearings required as part of the certified budget process. We are going to have the first public hearing would be at our April 14th board meeting. And actually, that is the one that has to be a completely separate meeting from our regular board meeting. So at 6 o'clock on April 14th, we would have the proposed tax hearing. That is the one where we can receive comments from the public, either in person or written, regarding our proposed property tax levy rate. And then after that meeting is over, we would begin our regular board meeting on April 14th. The second public hearing is the budget adoption hearing. That would be a part of our regular board meeting on the April 28th board meeting. So that does not have to be a separate board meeting, and that would be the board meeting in which we actually adopt our certified budget and officially set our levy rate for next year. So we will need a motion tonight to set those two dates for public hearing number one, the proposed tax hearing, and public hearing number two, the budget adoption hearing. The other thing that we need to do tonight, we just need the board to come to consensus regarding where we want to set our property tax levy rate for next year. And our recommendation has not changed at all from the recommendation that we made at the last board meeting. The state still has not set supplemental state aid for next year, so we don't know yet what that's gonna be. There's talk about it possibly being anywhere from 2 to 2.25%, with possibly 2.25% and a one-time money addition to that. I don't know if you've heard anything new, Brian, but that's.
Oh, still where it's still at.
Okay, all right. But regardless of where they set SSA at, what we are recommending here at Pleasant Valley, you may recall from last board meeting, we are maxed out on our cash reserves. So our cash balance in our general fund is more than 20% of what our actual expenditures were in the 2023-24 fiscal year. So we are not allowed to levy anything for next year for cash reserve. The only other levy that we have any flexibility on whatsoever would be our management fund. And we are recommending that we keep our management fund levy rate for next year at the exact same rate as it was for this year, which rounds out to 86 cents per $1,000 of taxable valuation. We believe by keeping our management fund levy rate at the exact same level for next year as it was this year, it would cover all of our expenses for next year, including projected increases in our liability and property insurance that we expect we could have for next year, and not deplete our fund balance, which is already at a very healthy fund balance in our management fund for next year. So we would keep the management fund levy rate the same. Because we're not able to levy for cash reserve for next year, our total levy rate for next year would go down somewhere in the range, this year's levy rate is $13.46. Next year's levy rate, depending on where they set SSA at, would be somewhere in the $12.20 to $12.25 range. So our overall levy rate would go down approximately $1.21 to $1.26 or so for next year, depending on where SSA eventually gets set at. So, like I said, we just need the board to come to consensus, if that makes sense to everybody. Like I say, we really don't have, the only thing we have any flexibility is management fund.
Mike, can you just share if SSA is not set by the end of next week or middle next week, what happens then in terms of our budget and what we put on there?
Well, our plan is to certify our budget, to present to the state SSA at, I believe we're gonna set it at 2.25%, because that would, once you set that and you send it to the state, you cannot eventually raise it any higher than that. You can always lower it, but you can't set it any higher than that. We believe by using 2.25%, we would be safe as far as, that would be the safest place to set it at for next year.
In other words, we don't believe the state's gonna come back anything higher than 2.25. And if you go low on what we're sending out to the public, you can never increase it back. You can always adjust your budget down, but can't adjust up. So we'd use a 2.25 next week and we'd send us that off. We don't know what it is, which then would result in the 121 being the decrease versus the 126. So it's just, this is the rules we have to follow. And once we know SSA, then we can finalize it.
As a reminder, we send that information to the state on on or before March 5th. Then the counties send out something March 20th to every taxpayer in the school district that shows what the proposed levies would be for the school district, the city, and the county. So is everybody, any other discussion, or is everybody, that makes sense to everybody?
Makes sense to me.
All right, if so, we will go ahead and proceed that way then, and then we just need a motion for the 2 public hearings for tonight.
I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the following aid and levy public hearing dates: April 14th, 2025, 6 p.m. proposed tax hearing; April 28th, 2025, 6 p.m. budget adoption hearing.
Okay.
Excuse me. Motion by Director Wheeler, second by Director Ayers, that the board approve the following aid and levy public hearing dates: April 14th, 2025 at 6 p.m. for proposed tax hearing; April 28th, 2025, 6 p.m. for budget adoption hearing. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Wheeler?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
And Mrs.
Yes. We're gonna move on to monthly financial reports, and this is also Mr. Smith.
All right, you had a copy of the January 31st, 2025 monthly financial report in your board packet. The first page is showing on the screen here, which is the general fund. I did not have anything which appeared to be a significant concern at all on the January 31st monthly financials. Director Canwisher did email me a few questions, which I got him the answers to prior to the board meeting here today. Again, if you have any questions, once you look over those answers, let me know on that. But otherwise, I didn't have any concerns on the monthly financials. So unless any other board members had any questions on the January financials, we would just need a motion tonight to approve those.
Move the board accept the monthly financial report for January 2025 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Ayers, second by Director Canwisher, that the board accept the monthly financial reports for January 2025 as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Wheeler?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Mr. Candler?
Yes.
Mr. Is?
Yes.
And Mrs. Beck?
Yes. All right, and at this time, we will move on to our professional development for the board. And go ahead.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have Tammy Drawbaugh with us here this evening. Tammy is a former board member down at Muscatine, so she has sat in all of your seats and understands what it's like to be a board member. And then since then, she has taken on this seat at IASB and has been a great resource for us at our AAA meetings that we have with superintendents, but also doing these trainings for us as well. So tonight, originally Nikhil had set this up when he was board president. Timings just didn't work out when we were looking at all that, and so we kept it going on with Molly, and just thought tonight would be a nice one to have around governance, that we're looking at tonight. So she's gonna lead us through this. It'll take about 2 hours roughly. And at this time, Tony, Leanne, and Bernie, and Jill, and Mike, if you guys wanna step away, you're more than welcome to do that, and we'll do our board training at this time, so.
If you'd like to stay, you're more than welcome to stay as well.
They're all rubber. Is that a trick?
You guys want snacks before you leave?
Thank you.
I don't feel like we really earned.
I don't know, we earned them tonight.
Smart.
Huh? There was only 5 people that did it. It's still recording. It'll be like, see you later, Jameson.
You guys are gonna say?
And one of them was unicorn.
I will have follow-ups, Mike. Oh, answered it.
Did he say that I could leave?
There's your one.
I didn't advise.
I got like 145 left from.
Superintendent.
Can you get around, Mr. Clean? Careful.
Hopefully I was not my best.
Thank you. Be in touch for sure.
I was always glad.
You want a treat? Anything? You want anything?
Sure.
Yeah, we're still on, yeah. So, yeah. What
There
we'll
are
do
some good
tonight-
snacks and some water.
Heather, are you still on live or are you on?
Just before I got there, so.
No, we're good, we're good.
Yeah, I don't need that.
Me either.
Good for you. Yeah, let us know what we can do for you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, so tonight, we'll stay on
Get up and help yourselves to whatever you need, because most of you are on what I would call at least phase 2 of your night. You've already worked a full day. You may have even done a phase before that. And I'm guessing it's a good chunk of you that have phase 3 waiting for you when you get home tonight. I remember those days very well. So I shared with Brian when I got here tonight, I am in new eyewear, so I have some new contacts. I'm trying to figure out some cheaters because I still have to have those. So if you see me frown, squint, or make a funny face tonight, it is not because of anything you've said. It's me trying to figure out how I'm going to see best. So that's my full disclosure to that. So I appreciate being invited to your district, friends. And for those of you who are saying, yeah, I didn't have any choice, no one asked me, this was just part of the gig, I will still say, thank you. You spend a great deal of time gavelled in or around your table, and so investing time in your own professional development is really important to me, not only because it's what I do every day, but because it is how you continue to grow as board members. And things change so rapidly. I mean, I was even reminded as Mike was talking about, hey, remember last year that it changed, that we had to have 2 public hearings. And I'm like, oh, and all the paperwork that has to go out, right? And all the things. And there's always something new. So being able to dedicate time for yourselves and to learn together is a beautiful investment. I also believe it's beautiful modeling for your staff. In your budget of things that you spend dollars on, are you spending money for your staff to have professional development throughout the course of the year? Probably a significant amount, I would imagine, because guess what? The world changes quickly for them as well. You are just modeling that beautiful behavior, though, for them to say it is important enough to spend this time together. IASB has a program. We call it our Annual Board Award, or ABA. I'm old enough to still want to say ABBA sometimes, and then I show my age. The Annual Board Award runs each year. So it starts November 1st of any given year, and it runs through October 31st of the following year. So you're not quite right in the middle, but good quarter plus the way through. When you attend IASB events, when you have a workshop like you're having tonight, you earn hours for the time you're learning. And we make it really simple. When you spend an hour of learning, you earn an hour of credit. And so tonight, you'll walk away with 2 hours of learning credits. You need 15 to earn your annual board award. Here's where I get to be in competition with talking about how fabulous your dance team is, because y'all are making some really great progress right now. So Doug, walking into tonight, has 14 hours. So he gets 2 more tonight. His award's done. It's sealed up, which is fabulous.
What's the next level?
That is such a beautiful question. That's going to be a project for me in the next couple years.
It's a good prize too.
But it is a huge prize, and most importantly, you need to also bring your team with you, because we're going to talk about that. Catherine, you're at 7, and so after tonight, you're going to have 2 more. You are well, right? I don't quite have to take off our shoes for that one. And Molly, you've got an hour tucked in, so after tonight, you're going to have 2 more. So friends, and then the rest of you'll all have 2 hours. When the majority of your board, oh, and by the way, Brian's at 9, and we'll have 2 more after tonight, which is also important because he also gets recognized as your superintendent. When the majority of the board earns, so 7 of you, a majority is, how many of you? 4, beautiful. When at least 4 of you earn your 15 hours, your full board gets recognized. So Doug, your next prize is you got to get 3 more of your board members at least to get their 15 hours. There are 324 school districts now, I think, in the state of Iowa, roughly. Last year, there were 30-some. 31 maybe, that earned their team award. Why would Pleasant Valley not be one of those boards in the coming year? And lucky for you, I will gently nudge, it might feel a little bit like hounding Molly, to help guide you along in how you're doing on your hours. So you all can individually log in and you can see your own hours. Brian has access, and I think Deborah has access to go in and they can see everybody. So if you're ever desperate and you need to know text me or call me. I will drop it in your email box for you, because sometimes it's hard to know. This week, we have a webinar that we're doing on, this is horrible because I really should know this off the top of my head. I think we're doing it tomorrow. Is it tomorrow at noon? Is that right? Tomorrow at noon. I really am doing it, and I will be there, I promise. And then the next day we're doing it in the evening, but it's a webinar targeted for new board presidents around the superintendent evaluation. But anybody can join. Doesn't cost anything. It's an hour. It's Zoom. When you see those opportunities come across in your email box from IASB, if you say, oh, that sounds kind of interesting, but I can't do it that day or that time, sign up for it anyway. Because as soon as the recording's available, you get an email dropped in your email box. It says, hey, the recording's available. You don't have to go look anywhere. You just click on the link, you watch it, you can self-report that as an hour. So it's great if you can join us live. We love that. But if you can't, that's okay too. You can also go back and on our website find where we have our other previously recorded webinars, and you can go back and listen to those as well. And there's a place to self-report. So you don't always have to be at the event live. We love it when you are, but there are other opportunities because we know you all have other stuff, like paid gigs most likely that you need to do during the day, and it's hard sometimes to get to those events. So if you need help with that, let us know though. But Molly and I already talked about it. I'm like, yep, you're already on the radar. I'm gonna be watching to see that. And I'll take care of your hours for tonight, so you don't have to do anything. By the time I get home, I send a quick email, here's who was here, and they get those hours added in right away. And usually they do it right away the next day. So if you were like me and going, well, when will I see that on the website? They'll do it right away, okay?
I think that's the last sheet of the handout they have.
It is the very last sheet of your handout, and you're gonna write yourself a note, by the way, because you're gonna be mailing that. I'm going to be mailing it off to you, and I'll tell you more about that before you're done tonight. So one, if you really want to have that handy, take a picture of it with your phone. I'll remind you of that again later, but so that you have it. But we try and make that as simple as we can. And in our AEA, because Brian also knows I'm a titch competitive, so in our AEA, Muscatine earned theirs this past year, which was the first time they've earned it in almost 20 years, so that was a big deal. Your friends in Maquoketa have earned a few times. Your friends over at North Scott earned last year. So if any of you are competitive and also want to put a friendly nudge out to your peers, there's the way to do it. All right? I'm going to work from your packet tonight. The slides that I'm going to use will not all exactly match, but they have page numbers on them to kind of guide you. The first thing I would say is on the front page of your packet is my top secret cell phone number. And thank you for the chuckle on that, because I find that to be pretty funny. I give that out to everybody. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Yes, I have a number in Des Moines. I have no idea what it is other than it starts 515 and it rolls to my cell phone. So it's always just easier. Call me, text me, email me. But please reach out when you have questions. I was sharing with Doug how much I drive during the course of the week, and he's like, so what do you do to stay entertained in the car? And I'm like, I'm usually taking phone calls, which is perfect for me because it's a great way to pass that time. But when I was first a board member, I didn't realize I could call someone at IASB. It doesn't cost anything. And I do all kinds of things, from getting phone calls that people will say, am I crazy? This is how I'm feeling about X. Or I just don't like this. Can we talk through it? Or what would you do in this situation? So it doesn't matter what the reason is, but use us. So please call. And if for any reason you could not get a hold of me, I do have a peer that covers the other side of the state. So between us, we do a lot of sharing of numbers and et cetera. Okay? Conversations are always confidential. I have some board members, that's the first thing they ask me. And so, if Molly and I chat and Adrian calls me later, I don't say, oh yeah, let me tell you all the juicy stuff Molly said. Molly gets to tell whoever she wants, or Brian gets to tell whoever he wants, but I don't share that conversation. Unless Molly says, hey, I talked to Adrian, and I told her, hey, call Tammy, and I told her what we talked about, okay. But otherwise, it's always confidential, okay? Unless it's like I would have to tell my kids, as long as, no one's died, there's not blood, right? What are all the things that we would tell our kids, right? All right, so I'm gonna put you to work right off the bat. How would you feel if you could write your own legacy about being a board member? That'd be a cool thing to do. I'm gonna give you a chance to do that. On page 1 of your packet, the very first thing that I want you to think about, 2 years from now, what do you want people to say about this board for the Pleasant Valley Community School District? What do you want people to be saying about you? And this is when I say, look around the room, look in the eyes of your peers and say, what do we want to be known for? What do we want people to talk about? And I gave you some blank pieces of paper because ultimately I want you to write your answers on those blank pieces of paper because we're going to tape them up. I don't care about your spelling. If anybody's worried about being a good speller, I don't care about that. We'll figure that out. And I gave you a marker so you can write nice and big to help my 29-year-old eyes that I've already said can't quite figure out where they're supposed to be focusing yet. So you can write in your packet if you want, but I want you to put it on nice and big on those blank pieces of paper I gave you. Okay? And if you need more paper, I do not mean to be stingy, so if you need more paper, let me know. And don't overthink your answer, by the way. It can be simple, it can be long and poetic if you like. You can write a haiku if you would like, but it can be very simple as well.
We do.
A supportive team. Supportive team.
Okay.
Gonna give you just a couple more minutes to finish up, and then I'm gonna give you your next assignment. All right, everybody got your thoughts together? Okay. This is where I'm going to put you to work. You have to, I would like you to share what you wrote with another board member, but it has to be someone you're not sitting next to. It's the best ever.
I said it first in my head.
Are you
Right,
sharing?
right here.
Sharing, you can
Oh,
share.
I can share with you.
Yeah. What am
Sorry.
I?
And Brian, you can eavesdrop around, and you can also add yours as well.
Very good.
No, it's not. That's fine. It's my. All right, you want to first?
Oh, we sure?
Sure.
So I,
The district's needs.
I said that,
Dedicated to us, the staff is
like people to say about our
student inclusion,
students,
creating a culture that retains top talents and makes our teachers feel supported.
that those are.
Our community trusts us. We created a safe and inclusive environment. We were consistent and unified and holding to high standards of accountability.
I had another piece of.
Held a modern approach to education, meaning like we're preparing students to go out in society and be high performing, no matter kind of where with technology or
Necessarily always feel like we're, you
like that.
know, because.
So,
Didn't have room to write all
that, yeah, and mine,
Did you go to the outlet?
many of those fit. Some I didn't address directly. Mine's more
Say something back.
Time to go home.
start down a path, twisted around protect, change and challenge, and manage to further importance to society.
Say whatever.
Educated graduates. So yeah, thinking logical things, you know, real political
I
stuff.
feel like very similar because I basically
I was trying. I'm thinking through some of.
No, it's, I wrote it fast. So I said that the understanding of
Alignment.
definitely
That was easy.
What's better instead, you know,
together to develop solutions. Taking the easy path to the path that leads to
finding
slow down.
solutions, not necessarily.
It's two words.
Or the solution we have to pick, you know, the best solutions to.
I can't get a word in.
I love it. It's funny. I watched this. Oh, he must not like it.
Somebody's right. Have a high five. So both of you said second at the same time. I was like, oh.
Tasks that are given.
It is a little warmer over the side. I have to say that
It's a
too.
very diverse community.
Page.
You know,
Getting all in a row.
Yes.
Did you share yours?
Yeah.
We're kind of on the same page. Mine was the same, and she's got like
Bullet
detail.
points.
I watched it in like.
Yeah.
The best majority.
Who wants to share something you heard your partner say?
I will.
Can you read that?
You have your glasses, Doug.
But mine.
It's like a bubble.
Advocate for student inclusion was the top one she had.
Beautiful. Who else wants to share?
They understood the district's needs, listened compassionately dedicated to teachers, staff, and students, worked together to develop solutions, not always taking the easy path, but the path that leads to excellent outcomes.
Love it. Who else wants to share?
That basically we, as a board, we care for the school, the teachers, the staff, and the community who are taxpayers.
Yeah. Share the conversation that y'all had. Would you please, about how you want people
Listening?
to. Yes. Yes.
So, the second part of, I didn't write it on my sheet, but, another thing that I listed was, making sure that our community, our constituents, our community knows that we're listening to them. Because I think it's very difficult when someone comes to a meeting and they want to say something to the board and we're not able to respond to them. It's very difficult for me to keep my mouth shut and not respond. And so we were talking that I want them to know that we are listening, where we just aren't able to respond at that moment. So I want our community and everyone to know that.
And I think that was really hard for me. I've been with ISB for 4 years now, so I've been off my local board about 4 years. And I miss the work horribly. I really do. I don't miss the phone calls and the emails. I'll live vicariously through all of you, meaning across the state, not specifically you all. But that part's really hard, and to feel, you want your audience to feel welcome, right? And you had so much excitement in the room tonight, which was just amazing to feel. And so I want you to just think about, as you all wrote some beautiful things, and so as you think about what do you want to be known for, that it's not just necessarily the work you do here when you're all together, right? So how will you tackle that? How will you think about, how do I know when they walk in that door that they understand that we want to hear from you, but we can't respond, right? The law's pretty clear on that, or what that looks like. Probably about a year ago, I was on my way out of town and I was headed to a board workshop somewhere, and I was headed north, and I stopped at a local business in town because I needed to make a quick stop before I left. And one of the owners of that business used to be a teacher in our district. And I would go so far to say he was a gifted teacher. You've all probably seen or watched the individual who they were made to teach and just could make connections with kids in a really unique way. So I walked in the door and Dan said hello to me, and I did my business, and I got ready to leave, and he said, hey, what are you up to now? And so I shared, and he goes, I said, the world of education misses you, right? And he said to me, yeah, but he says, I bet you don't miss those board meetings until 2 a.m., do you? And I was like, no, I don't miss that. So we shared a few more things, right? It was a quick conversation, and I walked out the door, and I sat in my car, and I felt pretty deflated because I thought to myself, the thing that he remembers, because we did have board meetings until 2 a.m., no one should do that, is that we had board meetings until 2 a.m. And I don't fault him for that. But I also was really quick to myself say, well, it wasn't my fault that we were there until 2 a.m., Catherine, just to be completely fair. But what I had to say to myself, it doesn't matter, because that is part of my legacy, and that's what he remembers. And so I think about that. And I share that and that was 10 years after the fact, but that was still the thing, right? He didn't remember the new STEM wing. He didn't remember how hard maybe we fought for SSA one year, or whatever that may be. That was 2 a.m. board meetings. That's what he remembers. It was a very, very valuable lesson. So I think about that. So I encourage you to always be thinking about what are those things, because we're going to talk about those We're gonna keep talking about the things you want to be known for as we go through the night. So to make it official, let's come put them up on the wall. I have this very, Brian has set me up with this very fancy flip chart and I'm going to have you just tape your answer to just tape it up here and tape it however. I would have used Brian's tape, but I couldn't see to find the end, so I've got your little, you've got the little pieces I tried to find on my fingers. I'm like, I can't do it. And just don't cover somebody else's up. One of the things that I will do after tonight is I will send Molly and Brian a follow-up letter about your work, just kind of summarizing what you did. I'll take a picture of this, I'll type it up, and I'll send you this work back because I think it's an awesome thing for you all to continue to remember and think about. Because ironically, let's see, if I take a quick peek at all of these, I don't see anyone that said to answer every phone call or email within 24 hours. I don't see anyone that said we're going to solve, I personally am going to solve all the problems that come to me. I see a lot of things about your team. And by the way, each time, even if you have the same individuals, you reform your team, right? Nikel, after leading you for however many years he led you, you have Molly leading you now, whom you've selected, and you pay her more to do that. Oh, we don't do that on a recorded, not true. But each time you do that, it changes the dynamics of your team, and you really are you are reinventing that team as well. So it's important to think about. So you have some really, really great things up there. What did you find when you shared what you wrote with your partner? What did you notice?
We thought ours sounded similar. That ours had things in common.
Anybody else feel that way?
We did as well.
Yeah.
So how interesting. You all come from different backgrounds. Did you all know each other before you sat next to each other on the board? And yet you come with some very common things that you wish to accomplish. And I would guess how you would like to do those might look a little bit different, but you come with very, very common background. And I would even go so far to say that I bet that if Nikhil were here tonight, his answers would be, he'd have some very similar pieces that would fall into that. You would be fun for you to, Molly, you can give him that homework and ask him and we'll knit it into what you have.
Will I get board hours for that?
I love it when she's negotiating. I love it.
I mean, if I have to do this again.
Let's talk. All right, so let's look at page 3. I have a small library that I brought with me, and this one looks pretty tattered. I want to talk just a little bit about Lighthouse Research. And the Lighthouse Research, if you were to go to Google and you were to type in Lighthouse Research, what would come up would be research that was done by the Iowa Association of School Boards. In early 2000, we had a separate research arm. It was funded in a variety of ways. The research was not just done in the state of Iowa. There was a lot of research done in Iowa and in Georgia. And by the way, we went to a different state to do said research because we didn't have a lot of data in Iowa that we needed. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. On our website, you can find this book, Leadership for Student Learning. You can download it for free. You can also buy it. Don't buy it right now. We are updating it. Not so much the research, but the pictures. They still have those monitors in them that are like this deep, right? We were looking at it, we're like, So it's getting a little bit of a refresh, but you can download it. So it talks about some of the research. When the research was done, there were a couple of really key things that happened. One, there were a couple of different phases to the research that happened. The results have been shared both and studied both nationally and internationally. So it has been used many places. But what the research said is there was nothing that existed that said, can we study school boards and can we look at the achievement of students and make a correlation that if a really high-functioning board, and we look over at student achievement, will we see high student achievement or will we see lower student achievement? If you were betting, what might you guess happened? absolutely. There was a direct correlation between school boards that were really focused on students and really focused on learning themselves, much higher achievement for their students. We pulled out 5 really key pieces of, so what is it? What are those 5 really important key roles? And that's what you see on page 3 of your packet. So the first one is we say that when a board sets clear and high expectations, you all collectively, and I'm going to say as a team with Brian, get really clear on what is it that the Pleasant Valley Community School District is going after this year, next year. What is the thing that we're going to do?
Tammy, we can tell you right now, we are committed to excellence.
It was ironic as I watched that in the background and as you are, by the way, lifting up all of your students, asking what their aspirations were. I loved the suggestion of, will you please introduce you or tell us who your parents are as well and if they're in the room, right? What a fabulous way to really say students are front and center. The other piece of that set clear expectations, high and clear expectations, is this incredible belief that every single child in your district can learn. That we don't say, well, we know that because we have students in poverty, we know what data says about that. What are you doing about that? How collectively are you saying, we're not going to let that data tell us what those students can do. We're going to say, what are the roadblocks? What might that look like? Every single student can do this, no matter what they look like when they walk through our door, no matter what resources they might have at home. We can do this. And that doesn't mean you're doing the doing, whatever that is, right? But it does mean you're looking to Brian to say, what do you need? What does that look like? It means from time to time you're looking at Mike going, can we spend that money? And we know the SBOs never say yes to that, by the way. The next one is, and by the way, so there's an in bold, under each of those, each of the 5, there's a question that helps you to think about, so what's my question? What do I ask? And we think about what are our greatest hopes and priorities for the district. Part of that, you just did. You just talked about what do you want to be known for? And maybe there's, maybe, do you have a building project going on right now? Yes. So ironically, none of you said we want to finish the building project, which by the way, would have been a beautiful thing to say, right? That's okay. But thinking about what is it? What are those goals for the district and how are we going to hit them? The next one is create conditions for success. So what do we need to do? We collectively, what do we need to do to set, stay the course, and say, yes, this, excellence, that's where we're headed to. And by the way, I would tell you, I want you to define excellence, because I bet if I went around the room, you'd all talk about it a little bit differently, which is okay. But then I'm going to say, so how are you getting there, right? Are you really, really clear about what that looks like? And what do you need? How will the board support that? The third one is holding the system accountable. And when we say accountable, I like to say with a soft hammer, because it is absolutely saying, all right, we want to know what our data tells us. Okay. That means from time to time, friends, you're going to see data you wish you didn't have to look at, or you wished it looked a little different. But very thoughtfully, as you talk about the data, you would not say, what is going on in that 3rd grade classroom at Colorado? Why are there test scores, right? You wouldn't say that. You might say something though like, gosh, Brian, it looks like across the board 3rd grade needs some support from us. What can we do? And you're gonna ask him that question, by the way, before the meeting so he knows it's coming, right? So you can say, hey, let's talk about what that looks like. But that you're really digging into your data and saying, what does our data tell us? And that you say to both Molly and Brian, I have no idea what fast data really means, and y'all keep bringing it back to the table, but what do you want me to do with it? It's okay to say, I don't know what that is, and yet we're usually not comfortable doing that, especially if there's a gallery full of people. Totally get that, right? It's also okay when your staff brings you data to take time and say, turn to your partner, turn to your elbow partner and talk about what you see. What do you notice? no right or wrong answers, but give you time to really talk about what is it from the data that you see, or what don't you understand, or what do you want to know more about. The next one is to build collective will. Sometimes that's with staff. Sometimes that's with your community. But it means when you believe that every single child can learn at high levels, when you are willing to say, Brian, you tell us what the roadblocks are, we're going to figure out a way to move around those. 86 cents for every $1,000 of property tax, is that right? Holy cow, I'm moving here. And your rating, by the way, that was a really big deal as I'm listening to him say AA- to a double. Yeah, that's huge. All of those pieces, right, become really, really important. So then how do you keep building that collective will? How do you build collective will when the staff says, and I'm making this up, I'm not saying your staff is saying this, but we don't want to do one more thing, or we don't think this is the thing, or we don't like this thing. How do you help rally here when you're together to talk about, we know this won't be easy. We know this might be really, really hard. We know it's a big change. We also want to support our staff. Brian, what do they need? Do they need a 2-day professional development? Do we need to send them somewhere? Do we need to create a plan? Brian, tell us, what would that look like? But when they hear you talking about that as well at the table, that's a beautiful thing. The very last one is exactly what you're doing tonight. You're learning together at the table. So tonight's not about your own data per se, but it is just taking that time to say, let's spend some time together, not just doing team building and 14 straws and 3 marshmallows and what can we create, but how can we talk about our governance role and what does that look like? This work, these 5 things, is one of the places where I get the most passionate, because when I think about what are the things that take the majority of your time at the board table, where do you spend the majority of your time? What kind of work? I watched it tonight.
Financial.
Which is really, really important, right? But you had to go through a lot of motions of your financial stuff. And I also totally get all right, who's going to do this one? All right, I'm seconding this one. And I am going to beat Doug to the second. And I'm watching, right? Which was great, by the way, because it gets dry. And I'm sure the audience goes, really?
I noticed none of the audience stayed for that.
That's also not uncommon, right? That they all leave. However, you spent a huge chunk of time tonight honoring your students as well, which is also great modeling and so much fun. And how could you not be excited to see that young talent stand in front of you? Oh, and then by the way, only 11 finalists for National Merit Scholar. I mean, what great things to talk about, right? So those pieces also, it's a great learning opportunity though for you all to get to hear those pieces. That, to me, is where your work is so important. It doesn't mean people will stop calling about, I'd like to have this schedule changed, or I don't want to do this, or I had this issue, my child had this issue on the bus, please fix it. That will still happen. But when you are also able to talk about the really, really important pieces that you're doing, every child is important, but when you're able to talk about that in a bigger picture, it changes the work you do together. All right. So again, and if you want to look at my tattered book before I leave with all my pieces in it, you are more than welcome to do that. And if anybody needs a link, tell me where it is. The book is really helpful, by the way. If you were to go download the official white paper on the Lighthouse Study, 70-some pages, it's probably a little dry. It's really good, but this ADD brain needs that or something a little bit shorter to give me some nuggets. So know that that is out there. Let's talk a little bit, if you turn to page 5, about governance. This is what Brian promised that we were really going to talk about, which brings me to book 2. The top half of this page comes from a book called The Governance Core. You will notice that is not what this book is, because this is the Governance Core 2.0. The Governance Core the original book was written by 2 individuals, Davis Campbell and Michael Fullan. And most individuals in the world of education will say, oh, yes, Michael Fullan, we know who that is. Davis Campbell, so he is very well known in education. He also said, I want to write a book about governance. However, I've never been a school board member. I need to go find somebody. So he found Davis Campbell, who was a school board member for a number of years. He led the California School Board Association, and they wrote the Governance Core. And I loved that book. It looks about like this one, because it's all to add. This one just looks nicer, because it's about us. It's about your experiences. It's very practical. They wrote 2.0. This, friends, really addresses what happened after a pandemic. This is amazing. I measure my own board work pre and post pandemic because it changed. We don't do anything the same that we did before the pandemic. We don't buy toilet paper the same. We don't buy groceries the same. We don't eat out the same. Everything changed in some way, shape, or form. So I really like the Governance Core 2.0, how it talks about that. It also talks about our political climate. And it addresses, right? That too has changed a little bit in what that looks like. And it also acknowledges you're not going to take that out of your work. But if you think about those 5 key roles and that belief that all students can learn and achieve at high levels, it doesn't matter what your politics are, right? That still rings true. So I highly recommend this. The segment that I have in your workbook is the same, by the way, as it is in here, and you're welcome to take a look at this. I get nothing. I get no kickbacks, by the way, but this is an amazing book. Molly, this would make a great book study as a board. And you all could do it on your own. You could talk about it at the board table, and there's absolutely hours for that. So I found that one on Amazon. It came to me. So I'm going to stop talking for just a minute. I want you to read that first chunk of verbiage at the top of page 5. And if there's anything that stands out to you, that you like, that you resonates with you, highlight it, underline it, put a star by it. What stands out to you in that first section that you read? What did you underline, highlight, star, circle, etc.?
Governance is the what and administration is the how.
That gets right to it, man. What else?
That's exactly what I underlined.
Brian's thinking, stay in your lane.
Right.
Nope.
What else did you highlight?
The connection between communities and professionals, between policy and application.
It's like the glue, right? Catherine, that's one of my favorite ones. What else? You capture it all? So in the book, it talks about governance coming from the Greek word kubernes, which means to steer. And because I'm a visual learner, I think of steering a ship. Some people think of a crow's nest. You are sitting at that 10,000-foot level. And did anybody take a turn coaching the dance team that was here tonight? You absolutely supported having a dance team in your district, right? I even heard the words, we like it when you win, but we just want you to enjoy yourself, right? So that piece of, you hired some incredibly talented coaches. that led them, right? And you all sat back, and I'm gonna guess just got to cheer and enjoy the wins as they experienced them, right?
Had to support one of the coaches. It was his daughter.
Oh, you did have to support one of the coaches. Okay, fair enough. So you are steering, right? And every other program, and I'm trying to remember because there were a couple other programs that she mentioned that she said she wanted to give shout outs to. Was it swimming, robotics? Right. So this beautiful blend, right, of hey, we're looking to we want to spread all the love, right? Which is beautiful. So we think of Brian as being, if you all are steering, what is Brian doing? In my analogy of a ship and how you're getting there. What part does Brian do?
The manpower.
He's rowing, right? And he's not rowing by himself. He has a team that helps him row. But at the end of the day, when you all are saying, what happened? We're not going towards excellence. You're going to Brian to say, what happened, right? You're not going to the dance coach, especially not if it's his daughter, or whomever, right? Or the robotics coach or the math teacher or the AP music, whoever. You're going to Brian to say, hey, help me understand what happened. And that's a different conversation than that the two of you, that you get to have or that the board gets to have. So you all are doing the steering. Brian is doing the rowing. You look at the box at the bottom, and Doug, you jumped right to this when you said governance is it's the what, and the role of the superintendent becomes the how. And so we divide it out, and we say, here's what that looks like. So there are a lot of times we'll talk about being at the 10,000 foot level, or we'll talk about being in the balcony. And by the way, board members, all the juicy stuff happens on the dance floor. And especially if it's a high school dance, right? But when you're looking down, when you're in the balcony and you're looking down at a dance, what kinds of things will you see? Let's pretend it's not a high school dance for just a minute. But what will you notice besides people dancing?
Different styles and different paces.
Beautiful. What else?
People having fun.
Okay. And okay. People might be talking. Will they be talking on the dance floor? Where else might they be talking?
Bar.
At the bar. Again, not a high school dance. Right? They may not be on the dance floor. Let's say whatever song finishes, and let's say it's a fast song, and now there's a slow song that gets played. What's going to happen to the people that were on the dance floor?
A lot of people exit.
Gear up.
Yeah, right? You get to see that at the balcony versus if you're down on the dance floor, you're usually so focused on your partner, you're not noticing that, holy cow, 100 people just left the dance floor. So when you get to watch for patterns, when you get to see things, again, it comes back to that piece of when you're looking at data, right? Or you're asking Brian, bring us data, or what would that look like? Or I don't know, do we even have data that measures blah, whatever that is? But that changes what that looks like. How about policy? Sounds like to me y'all are going to be revisiting a policy, Doug, that you sat on a committee and worked with.
Maybe.
So what do you all do from a policy perspective? What do you do with a policy?
Review, provide feedback, ask questions, and then eventually approve them.
Yep.
Help iterate.
And who implements a policy? Brian. And sometimes if you see enough policies come through, sometimes you look at him and go, good luck, let us know how that goes, because we have no idea how you're going to implement that. And he may say, we'll have to figure this out. But a lot of your policy comes from, a lot of the policies that are delivered to you or recommended to be put in place come from where? Come from IASB, but it comes from state law or Iowa code. Fun fact, so you all subscribe to our policy primer. It's spelled primer, but it's pronounced primer. Don't ask me why. When we deliver those to you, and I say that like I have something to do with it, and I don't, and that's a really good thing. You don't want me doing the writing. So we have an attorney on staff who she is not our legal counsel per se, but she is an attorney. She writes our policies. She writes them to support whatever the law says. She does not write them in a manner that she always likes, because they would look very different, but that's not her responsibility. It's to write to the law, right? So after she does that, she sends them 2 places. They go to Allers and Cooney, which is one of the largest supporting education law firms in the state, to read, to say, hey, what do you think? Then she also sends it to Thomas Mays, who is the, I will say, grand poobah of attorneys at the Department of Education. That would not be an official title, by the way. Grand poobah would be not approved by Thomas. But so she sends it 2 places because she says, hey, I need your feedback, right, before it comes out to you all. So by the time you see it, it's gone through multiple attorneys' eyes, which is also why they're written very attorney-ish, I would say. Because when I would read them, I would be like, I don't like this verbiage. And yet that verbiage becomes very specific to support the law. So as you all then walk through those, say, what does that mean? You're asking yourselves, how is this going to impact our students? AI is one that I'm going to guess that's going to change, I bet, multiple times in the next 5 years, right? But we have to start somewhere. Cell phone policy is another one, right? We know that we're going to address that. So when you're giving feedback to Brian to say, hey, this parent called me, I heard X, I was at the grocery store, someone stopped me, does that ever happen? I was just trying to sneak in to pick up my pizza and I wanted to go home and I got stopped by 3 people. But that helps giving that feedback to Brian, then he gets to say, okay, great, you figure out what that looks like and how the implementation happens, okay? And then of course your goal setting. Piece about what are the things that are really important. And while these aren't specific goals, I bet that if we talked about what your goals were, there are lots of things in here that feed beautifully into what are the things that PV is working on, what are you collectively working on the next few years. Right down the middle of that box, you'll notice it says collaboration. And if I click, I'll bring it in one more time. Because sometimes the line gets really gray in between. And sometimes it's really hard I found myself saying, well, I don't think that's really my job, but I kind of feel like I've got something I want to say about it. And so collectively, you always have to have this conversation. And I'm going to guess that Brian has not ever said, please don't call me, unless maybe it's like on Sunday afternoon, right? Or maybe Friday night, I don't know. But collectively and collaboratively, how will you deal with those things? And giving yourselves the freedom to support each other to be able to say, I think we just stepped into the weeds. And you can go, well, it wasn't me, it was you. Or that you give Brian permission to say, yeah, no, Tammy, that's my gig is I'm going to take care of who we should hire, and I'll make sure they have the certificate, the licensure, the et cetera, and then I'm going to present that to the board. Tammy, you're not going to be making the offer to the candidate. They're not your employee. Fair? But to be able to have that conversation together is really important. And by the way, we know that you are most likely always having someone in your ear as well. Yep, and you all are already shaking your heads. All right, I'm gonna put you to work. I'm going to give you some incredibly fancy and expensive homemade cards that look like this. You're going to work with a partner. I'm going to let you work with the person you're sitting next to, except for, Molly, you have to go find yourself a partner or someone needs to come join you, and then Brian's going to watch over everybody's shoulder. So between the 3 of you, you're rock, paper, scissoring who's staying and somebody's going. And here's what you're going to do. So there should be in these cards, there should be Doug, I think you've done this exercise before, so please don't give all the secrets away. That's all I have to say. Because I think you did this at Ready, Set, Govern. Adrian, have you done this before?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
Oh, really? Talking level?
Only because.
Right?
Here.
In the weeds, in the weeds.
That's not ours.
It's the board's job to conduct
That's not us.
teachers either. I think that would be something would need to be.
Considering not ours.
I mean, if teachers came to us as board members to like discuss or vent or whatever, that's fine, but to go out and do a meeting with
Anyone
We finished first.
I love that there's just a little bit of competitiveness in the room. I love it. All right. 2A, ask for information on guiding beliefs of the district's extracurricular programs. Where did you put that? And so to make it a little more fun, visuals are good. So did you do steering or did you do rowing? Steering. All right. And why did you put it for steering?
Beliefs.
Guiding beliefs.
Beautifully done. So 2B you put under
Robert.
rowing. Thank you, Catherine. Why would you leave 2B as rowing?
Because talking to a basketball coach.
about a specific
Yeah,
group of
personnel.
students.
So let's just take that one down a little bit of a rabbit hole. What if I said, okay, but I am an expert basketballer, dribbler. I know when there's a hat trick. I know all the things. And so I take it upon myself to go talk to the coach. How does that conversation sound? I have really good intentions. I just want to chat with the coach and offer some coaching.
As the board member?
Yes.
I think it may appear to be trying to utilize this way.
Little positional power? Yeah, I mean, that could be really uncomfortable. Think about if your boss's boss's boss came to talk to you about something, right? Which is essentially what you've done. Let's take it one step further. Let's say that Brian and the athletic director needed to put the coach on a performance improvement plan. And we wouldn't know that because that's not our purview, it's not our employee. But nonetheless, I still had fabulous advice to give. And I went and shared my advice with the coach, and I have no idea about the performance improvement plan. Now what's happened?
Conflicting guidance.
Yeah. And the poor coach is probably going, who am I supposed to listen to? Should, and by the way, basketball coaches just happens to be the example, full disclosure. Now let's say something happens and Brian and your athletic director need to terminate your basketball coach. And I've gone to see the basketball coach a couple different times because my guidance was good enough the first time. I thought I should go back 2 or 3 more times. And now, after the termination, the employee is going to contest the termination. When they contest the termination, who do they come before?
The board.
And I've had multiple conversations with the basketball coach, including the last time we talked. He might have mentioned that Brian's really being hard on him and he didn't feel it was fair. And I didn't feel, I thought maybe Brian was just being grumpy. I don't know. And I just became part of that conversation. The next thing that's probably gonna happen is Molly and Brian are gonna bring me into their office and we're gonna call legal counsel. And we're I'm going to explain what's happened to your legal counsel, and your legal counsel is gonna say, Tammy, you probably have muddied the waters and you're gonna sit this one out because you can't be impartial. No, I can. I know I can. At the end of the day, your legal counsel gets to say, Tammy, we think you can or we think you can't. And now that means I don't go in the closed session. I don't hear any of the conversation. And by the way, how many of you does that leave left?
Even number.
Yeah. Probably one of the more tougher decisions that you would have to make. And I just stepped in it really big and I left you to do it all by yourselves. And you can't ever tell me about it and I don't ever get to know anything about it. My one chance to really advocate for that human would be to be in that closed session. So it's okay to say when someone comes to you, if it's an employee especially, and says, Jameson, I really need to tell you some stuff, like get some coffee, sit down, because here we go. It's okay to say, I can't know that because should something come of that, I may have to recuse myself. And you don't want to have to do that. That's a little bit down the rabbit hole, but it is those pieces of we do something with best of intentions and then later we find out, probably shouldn't have done that. Okay? All right, how about 4A? Ask for information to determine the reason for an open enrollment request. Where did you put that? Catherine says steering. What'd you say?
Steering.
Why did you put that in steering?
Is you're asking more or less the district, like what are open enrollment, like why people are leaving or why people are coming in. They're not.
Balcony view.
Balcony view, big picture, right? Absolutely. So where did you put 4B? Process of elimination?
Rower.
Okay, now you two, I happen to be over here and you were like, no, there's no way we would do that. Like you barely even talked about it. Why would
Because
you
we know our role.
not? Why would you not go do that?
Because it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for us to do a quick poll of parents.
But, I mean, let's face it.
A Facebook poll.
Your friend, well, that's an even better idea, right? You can reach more people. Your friends with like some really fabulous, powerful parents, and like their kids are involved in all the things, they would probably have the best pulse of what's happening.
But they don't represent the whole district.
It's finding how do you make sure that you would be hearing from everyone, right? Or who would you inadvertently leave out? And we tend to hang with the people that think like we do, that we like, that, right? Which is fine, but you may be missing out on some really good information. And here's the other piece. And by the way, we don't make this stuff up because we don't have to. So when a board member all of a sudden brings it to the table and says, hey, by the way, while we're talking about this subject, I did a quick poll of my 15 friends, right? How do the rest of you feel?
List.
Nobody told me it was potluck tonight and I was supposed to bring, right, something to share. So the other piece is how do you get to learn together? And directing that to Brian to say, hey, help us understand what could that look like. All right, 8A. You're gonna do an informal lunch and learn with a group of dissatisfied teachers from one elementary building to get a clear idea of what they perceive as going wrong.
Rowing.
And tell me why you put it under rowing.
Good luck.
Okay, tell me more.
Just that it needs to be handled more. That doesn't, he might come, hey, we had this issue that we dealt with, but how he manages that, that's for Brian to decide at that point.
How many elementary buildings do y'all have? 6, good. So if I just go to one, probably the one where my own child is at, because that's where I know everybody. I'll just hang out in the teacher's lounge. It'll be fine, right? Well-intentioned. truly. But how might those other 5 buildings feel? Because word will get out very quickly, right? Let's say that while you're there, one of the staff members just comes uncorked about the principal and really starts giving some specifics. You have now dipped your toe in to performance of an employee that is not your employee, and that could have some legal ramifications as well. So again, another reason to say, and it's not that you don't want to know, and I keep coming back, Brett, to what you said about, right? You want people to feel welcome when they come to the meeting. We are listening. But there are some things that it's not your place to know, right? But who would be the perfect person for them to have that conversation with? If I'm a staff member and I'm uncorking about my principal, who should I be talking to? Who?
HR.
My principal first, probably, or HR, or I've done all those things, right? Then I can go to Brian. But I also am gonna bet, I should be standing close enough so you can kick me in case I'm wrong. I'm gonna bet that if I'm the employee and I come uncorked about the principal, that Brian's gonna very quickly, and I go right to Brian with that, I bet he's gonna say something like, tell me how the conversation you had with Principal X went. And maybe he won't be that kind, maybe he'll be a little more direct than that, right? But to guide me back to where I need to go. Okay. So 8B you put under steering? And why did you put it there?
Culture's big picture.
Yeah. And by the way, you're only going to do that if that's part of the superintendent evaluation. By the way, you don't get to surprise a superintendent with, oh, hey, by the way, let's talk about this while we're in closed session. But then if that's an important piece. All right, one more. You'd like information on grading and assessment practices, and you want them to be considered at the board table. Steering or rowing?
Steering.
And why did you put it under steering?
Be considered at the board table.
That was kind of a giveaway, wasn't it?
It was a very, yeah. 9B fit better under rowing.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's also big picture, right? Hey, just help me I just want to learn. Tell me how that works. And then, yes, 9B, again, if I brought my own assessment to the table, and by the way, I don't have a background in education except for what I've picked up by being on the board through IASB, et cetera, but I'm not the person that you want doing that. Not always easy, right? When you get to talk about it with a partner and you're reading the card and you're like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. But then sometimes when you're caught off guard or when you're not, do you ever have moments when maybe you're not thinking about board work?
Never.
On those rare occasions that maybe you just want to like run into Menards and get the thing that you're in the middle of the project and run back out, right? But it can be hard. It can be hard to get caught off guard as well with that. All right. So that was your fun activity about steering and rowing. And I would also encourage you all to spend time also thinking about how am I going to tell that person, right? How am I going to say, what does that sound like? Because I'm going to give you a chance to practice that tonight as well on how do I politely say, yeah, we can't talk about that, but let's talk about something else because we can talk about that. All right, if you look at your packet again, I took the liberty, and this is on pages 7 and 9, and Catherine, if you want to move, you can. If you have your packet with you and you want to stay, you can too. I pulled in 2 of your policies. One, I want to remind you that your policies, do you have any guesses how many policies you have, by the way? Did you say 35? That is beautiful, but I'm sure really low. And I didn't ask Brian or Deborah this ahead of time. Do either of you have a rough idea what your number is?
Our total number of policies?
Without saying, do you have a rough idea what it might, I mean, just not exact, but close.
I bet close to 2,000 at least.
Holy cow, that's a lot.
No, we have a 10 series.
And there's way more than that.
No, because
10 times.
I would have said you probably had.
I was thinking, yes.
Are you?
Probably 5. Maybe 500.
I was gonna say, I would guess, that's,
I had an extra zero.
well, and I'm like, maybe you're considering your procedures in there too.
It's almost 8 o'clock on a Monday.
But you have a lot, and I would also say, please don't ever feel like you need to know all of them. And if you've already read them and memorized them all, God bless you. We need to find you a different hobby. But there are some, yeah, exactly, right? Who's the bat phone or the text that says, do we have a policy on? But your policies as a board are your voice. And I also know that you may be sitting there saying, I don't even know what they all say, and I didn't approve all of them. And that's fair too. We already said a large percentage of your policies, and I'm going to guess, but I bet 85 to 90% of your policies come from either Iowa code or law. So you could choose to go against the law and not adopt a specific policy. I would re-invite you to think about that before you said yes to that, but you're the board, you can make that decision. But what I would say is at a high level, just know, hey, if I need to go find something, I know who I'm going to ask. So I have two policies that I want you to key into tonight, and the first one is 204.2 around public concerns. I took the liberty of highlighting a section. Would somebody just read that highlighted section out loud for me?
The board firmly believes concerns should be resolved at the lowest organizational level by those individuals closest to the concern. Whenever a concern is brought to the attention of the board, it will be referred to the administration to be resolved.
So Catherine, I need to call and talk to you about the track at the grade school because it wasn't what I wanted and there was still some snow on it and stuff the other day and I need to know how you're gonna fix that. Don't forget, I put your sign in my yard. I even wore one of those t-shirts that you made. And then don't forget, I did share your stuff on Facebook, on my personal page. Well, and then
I appreciate your support. However, the individual you need to be addressing this concern with would be the school principal.
And when it's your neighbor or your relative or the person you don't like, but is it hard? It is. Can it be?
I love it.
So direct all of those to Brent. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, the policy protects us though, right?
It does. It really does.
It doesn't matter if we agree with it or disagree with it, it's still the policy. So as long as we're following the policy, then we've done nothing wrong.
And I think that's a beautiful statement. And I think knowing what your policy says and knowing why, it doesn't say that this policy says what it says, not because it wants to help all school board members be mean, but it is, could you fix the snow on the track on the whatever? Like, what are you gonna do? Take your shovel out there and go like, I'll run right now and lose my job and go do that? No. And there would be so many implications, right, to all of those pieces. So helping someone understand why. And you will all find your own words to that or have found your own words. But I also do believe in saying it's not always easy when it's my neighbor, when it's in really small districts, it's my mother-in-law, it's my blah, 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 it's my, and that gets hard. Is this what you would want your students to do? Do you want your students to follow just that piece that Catherine read? Would you want your students to do that? If they have an issue? Yeah. So you're modeling for your students, right? By the way, in case you're wondering, the last time you looked at this policy and you approved it was in 2022. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. By law, how often do you have to review your policies?
Brian says 5 years.
It's important you know that. Brian's right. It is 5 years. You can do it more often, and some districts do, but it is important that you do it every 5. I was once in a great while I see somebody that I have to say, is this your most recent policy? Because, but that's also a really important thing you can tell your community, right? We don't just make them and stick them somewhere and don't ever come back. All right.
I'll do the next one.
Yeah. How about the next one? So the next one is 400.1. This is employee communication channels. I highlighted a couple of different things. Who wants to tell me what it says without reading it word for word? What's the gist?
there, but just with employees and school personnel.
You're beautifully consistent between your policies. I didn't look if you have one that's specific to students. And so you may or you may not, it might also be in your handbook. But I'm guessing somewhere you are saying very much the same thing. These two policies are about as opposite of the world we live in today. Where is it the most easiest place for me to go complain about anything?
Social media.
Yep. And that does not represent the majority of people. Let's also be very clear about that. But it is much easier to go do that than it is have a hard conversation with Molly about the fact that I don't like my new schedule or whatever that may be, right? But that piece again about modeling, helping create that environment of, but it's really important that we talk to each other, not about each other. And that piece, that is essentially what this says. You'll notice that it says, does it say, can you do it in front of anybody? Can I stand in the teacher's lounge and just rip somebody apart?
Never be made in the presence.
Yeah.
Students or outside persons.
Yeah, so I need you to, right, keep it, let's be professional about it. What if it were a student? What if a student, or what if it's about a student and they want to just give you all kinds of information about their student? Maybe they want to talk about their IEP, maybe they want to talk about their 504C, maybe they want to talk about whatever it is, and they just want to blah, and they just want to give you all of that. Let's say it's not their legal guardian that comes to you and brings you that kind of information. Can you hear all of that? Without looking at Brian to see if he shakes his head yes or no. So my friends, are you familiar with something called HIPAA, which is the Privacy Act for your medical records? So there's a thing called FERPA that protects students. So if another adult who is not a legal guardian to a student comes to you and says all kinds of things about their student, you can't know that. They should not be saying that either, right? That child, that student is protected. So it's those pieces of, and while your policy doesn't say that, right, that becomes the why behind, here's why I can't know all of these things that you want to share with me.
Can you role play that out? Like if someone were to start talking about how you stop them and say, "Hey, listen, I cannot, and this is why you need to reach out to your."
So one of the first things I will say is, and this is, for me, this is where it was hard because when it would happen, I'm not thinking about it. I'm literally in the grocery store. I'm awkwardly carrying a bottle of wine, just trying to get out the store, right? I mean, those are the times the box of pizza is in your hands and you just want to get home because, well, it's still hot, right? So I think one of the first things I would say is really be careful about your body language. Because I'm somebody who I want you to know I am listening. So as you're talking and I'm trying to be polite and I'm shaking my head yes, what am I telling you?
Keep telling me.
Keep telling me, bring it on. And I agree. And I kind of just said I'll fix whatever it is, right? So thinking very carefully about your body language. Now the other thing is I'm not saying you should not look them in the eye or you should, stick your tongue out at them or something ridiculous, but being really, really mindful of what your body language says is really important. I think the next piece is when any of you are upset and you are telling someone that you are upset, and maybe you're not just saying, I'm really mad, but maybe you're talking to a spouse, a significant other, what do you really want them, what do you want to hear from them?
That they agree with you.
Okay, that they agree with me, and what else?
That they heard me.
I want to be heard. So I also think it's beautiful to say, Molly, I hear you. Molly, I hear you are really upset, right? Acknowledge, it's okay to acknowledge that. You don't need to apologize for how Molly feels, right? But acknowledging, Adrian, I hear what you're saying. And then, so I'm being careful with my body language. I'm acknowledging what I'm hearing. And then my next words are going to be something like, I hear you saying you're really frustrated with the preschool teacher. I can't fix that. But the person who can is the preschool teacher. Or if I was feeling extra sparky, I might say, tell me how the conversation went when you talked to Mrs. Scher about that. And then I wait and I let that really big awkward pause sit because I know the answer. No, I didn't. Well, that's the person who can fix this. And so once you've had a conversation, I know she'll take great care of you. My pizza's hot and my husband's waiting for me in the car. I gotta go. It was really great to see you. There's a piece of owning that conversation as well, right? Not that your constituents are children, but similar to what you do with your kids, right? Or nieces or nephews, right? You would probably not belabor the topic. You would be like, yep, nope, we're done. I can't do anything. I think it's also great to say, and I think for you all to talk about, when do you give Brian a heads up? When does Brian want a heads up? I don't know that I would say I had a scientific method to that, but if it felt like it was a really heated topic, I might get in the car and before I drove away, I'd send a quick text, just so you know, I saw this person, they're pretty heated, I sent them back to blah. Let me know what you need from me. Just to say, here's the heads up, right? That will help if in 3 days it gets to him. I would also caution you to say, hey, after you talk to XYZ staff member, let me know how that goes. I don't know about you all, but I don't have extra time for that. Like, nope, you are completely stepping out and you are letting that individual and the staff member have that conversation. You could certainly also say, so maybe Adrian says to me, I talked to the preschool teacher and it was just a horrible conversation. She didn't even listen to me, right? You know what, I'm sorry that was your experience. I've always had a great experience with XYZ. I would encourage you to have a conversation with the principal because Mr. Jones is amazing and he will take great care of you. That belief that all children can learn at high levels also means your staff needs to know you have their back 24/7. Those conversations at the grocery store, people will remember that as much as they will the 2 a.m. board meeting, right? When you've all experienced someone who's like, you may walk away and go, how can that person be so incredibly positive? Because they believe that this is the way, if I approach the day, it's going to be a better day, right? So for you to say, I have absolute faith in versus, I never liked that principal, you should probably talk to him. That will get back to them.
Yes.
Let's say it's in the form of an email. What do y'all do? Brent gets the email. Preschool teacher, it's a mess. I gotta tell you what's happening, and there weren't enough snacks, and the cinnamon graham crackers were all gone, and my child didn't get any. They were stuck with the plain old square ones, not even the teddy bear ones. It was a mess. What are you gonna do? As a board, what do you do? Who answers the email?
So if I had a email like that, I would acknowledge that I received the email and that basically do the same thing as you would in person to reach out to the closest individual, and then I usually would give Brian a heads up as well.
Okay.
Sometimes too, in the past, I know it, because we have, different than other school boards, I believe, we have director districts, so we each represent a part of the overall school district. So sometimes if we know it's from a particular director's district, I know Nikhil would say, hey, Catherine, I think this person lives in your director district. Do you want to respond? And then that's one of your constituents.
Okay, which is a great protocol as well. I never felt comfortable not responding. I wanted to at least say something like, your email was received, right? Because it's the same thing. I came to the meeting, I talked to nobody, said anything to me, and now I just feel like it's on deaf ears, right? But I think for you all to talk about what does that, I heard one of your constituents say, I emailed all the board members. Was that a blanket email that you all knew you got that email, or did it come, because sometimes I'm gonna send one to you, I'm gonna send one to you, I'm gonna send one to you, right? I do that, I'm itching for an answer.
That was a blanket email.
Okay.
We all knew that we all got it, and I responded to that individual, acknowledging that we received it and acknowledging that we know there's a follow-up meeting.
Okay.
And I guess, you know, as a board, I mean, that's how Nikhil has, you know, practiced. I mean, I'm not gonna tell anyone here to not respond to an email if they want to. I mean, that's, the email was sent to all of us, but in the past, as board president, I feel like Nikhil has kind of taken the reign as far as responding to emails like that, where, you know, we know this is, you know, being addressed. It's not really our situation. Ryan is handling it. So, but and that's what I did. I tried to just at least acknowledge that, you know, we did receive the email. And I did not tell the board that I responded to her. So maybe I should have, but I just kind of fell into the practice that Nikhil's been, you know, using. So, you know, maybe that's kind of a topic that I need to address, that when I do get emails like that, I will respond. So that everyone knows, so she's not getting 7 emails back.
And 7 emails might feel good as a response, but if they're not all in sync, if I happen to say, I'm really sorry this happened and we'll look into it, and I don't really literally mean we'll look into it, I now become a little bit, that's a problem, right? Because we're not gonna look into it. And so I didn't look at your 200 series of board policies, but I'll bet you all a Diet Pepsi or a beverage of your choice that you have a board policy that says that your board president speaks on behalf of the board. And I usually look at that really when it's something hot, big, media comes in, right? And again, it's not because you select your board president to do a couple of key things for you. They're the ones that's signing normally contracts, and they're handling that communication because most likely they are the closest in contact with your superintendent and sometimes your legal counsel to say, here's what we can say and here's what we cannot say. And so however you decide to do that, I think if you said, you know what, maybe I just take my response and I forward it back to the board with a reminder that we're not gonna reply all, that would be fair, or to say, you know, here was my response. And that way the person knows, and, you know, maybe in your email you say, and I will be letting the board know I'm responding on behalf of the board, or I will let the board know I've responded, or whatever that is. But thinking about what's that thoughtful communication as well with your community member, so they don't feel like nobody's listening to me, right? So again, it's not that you can't speak, it's not that you can't reply to those emails, it's just thinking carefully about what are all the unintended consequences, which is hard, and that's the icky stuff in my opinion. What about, let's say something happens at school. Let's say the ambulance has been called, and the ambulance is at, tell me the name of one of your grade schools.
Bridgeview.
It's at Bridgeview. As a board member, what kind of communication will you hear about that before you go to the Book of Face or wherever your social media source is? How will you as a board member, or will you as a board member, be notified that there was a ambulance at Bridgeview?
Ryan would normally inform us through email or call, depending on the situation.
Okay. How much information, you don't get to answer this question in this moment. But I am going to come back and ask for your voice in the room, I promise. How much information will you get from Brian about the ambulance?
Pretty general.
Very basic.
It was called, that it arrived, maybe how long it was there for, but nothing, no details about who.
Everybody in agreement with that? Why is that? Why won't you have details about who it was? That's what I really want to know.
Because they're a minor to start with.
Or even if it was a teacher, it's violation of privacy.
Yes, yes. So when I call you, Catherine, and go, oh my gosh, I'm just finishing my coffee, but I read on the Book of Face, and you might not have even received text yet from Brian. So what if you don't know anything about it? I've called you because I really just, I want the tea. I want to know what's going on. What are you going to say to me?
I let it go to voicemail first.
Yeah,
Because it's me, or
I always, but I do try, whenever someone talks to me, I always try to validate. I just think it's good practice as a communicator to validate what you hear, like, oh, I hear that you've heard that. And as far as it goes with my knowledge, I don't, have any at this point in time. But maybe I'll hear some later or something along those lines, or, you know, that's interesting information. Thanks for sharing that with me, but trying not to confirm or deny reports.
what do you want Brian's number one focus to be when the ambulance has been called?
On helping the individual.
Situation, safety of whatever's going on.
So if there's an ambulance at Bridgeview, I haven't heard of it yet, but I know our superintendent's number one priority is safety. So once everyone is safe, I'm sure he'll let us know. But all I'm going to know is that there was an ambulance there. Students are safe, situation's under control. Right? But I think that piece is really important too, right? To say we have to deal with the safety of whatever's happening first. And then we'll be notified. Or Brian might say to Deborah, hey, will you send a quick text or email to the board that just says this, this, and this, right? And there'll be more information forthcoming. But it's hard not to know all the details. It's especially hard if it's your kiddo's building, or you know people that are there, or do you remember last year when all of the swatting incidents were happening? And my daughter is a para at one of our grade schools, and my neighbor down the street, who even when I was on the board knew everything before I did, and it was always right. I still to this day don't know how, but and would not be gossipy about it, but would call and say, And so she called me and said, have you heard? And I said, no. And I panicked. And do you know what my gut instinct was to do? I mean, I am ashamed to say this, but my gut instinct, do you know what it was? I was going to get in the car and go drive to the building. Well, that would have been the dumbest thing ever. But, right? It's my child who's the employee who I'm like completely worried about. So instead, I texted the superintendent's wife and said, hey, are your kids in school yet? Anyway, but we all have this need, right? This fear, and so I think also acknowledging that is when we can say that to each other, but when you are also able to say at the board table, when something happens in the district, the most important thing that we will always make sure of is that our students are taken care of. By the way, that's one of the very few reasons you get to go into closed session, is also to talk about what is that crisis plan if something happens. And the reason you get to go into closed session about that is because you cannot let the whole world know where your safety places are, right, for each building. Now all of a sudden it's not safe spaces. But to talk about that is also important. Is that helpful? All right.
Can I just add, there's times too, if you hear something, let me know, because sometimes I may not send a message up, because I may not think it's risen to that level, or I may forget. So if you do hear something, you can always let me know too.
And after I quickly said, don't answer the question, do you have anything else that you want to add to that conversation? I didn't.
Catherine was spot on. I mean, that's typically, whether it's that's an ambulance or a student makes an inappropriate, threatening remark at school, it'll always be, at this school, this was said, principal's on it, resource officers are on it, but that's, never say what grade they're in typically or anything of that nature, but.
Have you ever had a situation where your local police, law enforcement have had to get involved and then they take over the situation?
We've never had them where they've taken over the situation. We've asked them to come help, be a presence, so we have more people on, more hands on deck.
Okay. I had experience where there were times where, because of an investigation or something that needed to happen, the police said, okay, this now becomes ours. And even though it might have happened on district property, right? Once they come in, or the FBI and say, nope, this is, now we don't get to know anything. Other than, right, we're gonna make sure our students are safe, et cetera. But our statement, it is now a law enforcement, right, issue. There's also a piece of you each are, I'm guessing, just wired as doers in your community. You always have been. It's why you sit at this table. It's why you've been on the PTO, the PTA, the Booster Club, all the things. When somebody says, we have a emergency, we didn't get cupcakes for tomorrow, and somebody needs to drive the bus, and somebody needs to do this, and I could go right around the table, and you'd all go, yep, I'll do it. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'll do it. It's okay not to have an answer. It's okay to say to your community, it's not in my purview, I don't know, but I know our students are safe. And I know that was what you really wanted to ask me, right, Catherine? I mean, that's, to me, or that might be what you'd say, Tammy, what I think you really wanted to know is everyone safe? Yes, Tammy, I can tell you everyone is safe, right? That is our number one priority. All right, you don't want to have any of those icky, sticky situations either. Let's take a look really quick at page 11. And I just, can we just popcorn these answers out a little bit? Why do you have, as a board, why do you have policies around questions, concerns, and complaints?
Because that's what comes up frequently to the board, and having 7 of us, having us all on the same page for how we are going to respond to that makes it seem like we are working together, district as individuals.
Yeah.
So it's an expectation, what people can expect.
Absolutely. And it's a bit of a process for you all, right? So you don't have to make it up as you go. I also encourage board members to think about policy as, and one of you, Catherine, maybe you said it, like, I don't have to go figure out the answer. It's probably already in your policy somewhere. And better yet, you just get to look at Brian and go, don't we have a policy that covers that? And he's gonna go, I'm so glad you asked, because we have blah, 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 blah. We may have more than one. What is your role as board members? What is your role in relationship to these policies? And let's specifically just think about the 2, not all 500, but those two around concerns, complaints, questions. What is your role?
Or at least editors.
You can.
Communicate the policies to the community. We're aware of, we have guiding policies.
I would say to follow the policy ourselves.
Yes.
To kind of model the behavior.
Yes. And if it gets a little muddy or you're wondering what you should do, have that conversation, right? I mean, Molly, just like you said, hey, you know what? I'm just doing what I've watched somebody else do. Maybe I need to do this. Have that conversation. Like, that's a beautiful conversation to have. And I'm not suggesting you just say, well, we can't do that because 204.7 says I can't. That's not, right, what that's gonna look like. If you were gonna tell your public 2 things, what are 2 things you wish they knew about your policies? And again, these 2 specific. What would you want them to know?
We don't write them personally.
Okay.
Need to follow guidance.
Okay. You'd use different words. I'm always like, I don't like that word. What else?
For things you're trying to work out with. Things you're trying to work out with someone, you should work it out with them first and go up the chain, because you need to give them a chance, right, to reconcile the difference.
Yeah.
Instead of going to the top and.
Don't we all want that? Something didn't go well, come ask me about it. Come talk to me so I can fix it next time. Okay.
I think also that it allows us to treat everyone fairly. I mean, no matter who it is.
Yep.
We're doing the same thing for everyone, which is always kind of our goal.
Yes, consistency, right? That becomes really important, and it will make your lives much easier.
It is one of the eye-opening things I've had on the board, which is complaints about a member of the staff, only to find out that wasn't reality, so.
And I'm going to guess, because I hear this in a lot of communities, if you were to ask your community members, just randomly, 3 friends, and say, hey, what do you think my responsibility is? What do you think my job is? What do I do on the board? What do you think they would say?
My 3 responsibilities on the board.
Yeah. What do you even do, Doug?
Represent my constituents in making sure the district's headed the right direction, so financially, academic, curriculum, activities.
What about getting strawberry milk added at lunch?
So, Ryan problem.
Principal's problem.
You're right, actually, it's way lower than a Ryan problem.
Yeah, it is hard, right? And having that conversation is also, and when I'm already angry, I don't want you to tell me, right, that's not what I do. All right, I'm gonna give you a chance to practice. So you get to do a little role playing. So here's what you're gonna do. Take a card. I'll go like this.
I'm gonna be angry community member.
Well, you're gonna get a chance to do that. So I call these squirms because these are the things that people come up to you with that, in my opinion, they make you squirm a little bit. Because I gotta figure out, what am I gonna say? How am I gonna say it? These are also very fancy homemade flashcards, by the way, with IASP's logo. And it should also be important to tell you that none of these are made up. So you want the real skinny, ask me about that later. But here's what you're gonna do. You are going to find a partner, someone that you've not already worked with tonight, and you're gonna take your card and you're gonna take turns. One of you is going to be the angry citizen reading your card, and the other person is gonna be the board member, and you have to respond to angry citizen. Now, friends, here's the skinny. I don't care if you read every other word or every other sentence in the card. I don't care if you elaborate. I don't care if you really wanna be difficult, but remember, you're gonna switch. Your partner gets to do the same thing. But here's what I will tell you. Don't let your partner off the hook. Push them a little bit. This is the safest space you will ever have to practice some of the crazy things that people will say to you, from what may feel crazy to you from time to time. So push each other a little bit in how you practice, okay? Think about your body language. Think about how you've talked about acknowledging that, you're hearing the individual, and then how are you going to own the conversation so that you don't let them corner you in the grocery store while your ice cream melts in your cart. All right? So find a partner, somebody you've not worked with. You can rock, paper, scissors. Who goes first? One or the other?
Yeah.
All right, how was it?
It was fun.
It's never easy.
I didn't get my trip.
I made him miss a trip to Jamaica.
Because you wouldn't buy his solar panels.
Panels from his pal. Back was a trip to Jamaica.
Unfortunate. What worked? What worked well for you in your conversations? Besides who's Brian?
Referring it back to the building, like the school, or back to like the principal, or going back that.
Just staying consistent, right? I mean, it's the same message, even if we have to say it 5 different times.
Yeah.
In different ways.
In different
based
ways.
on how they respond.
I like how Doug said, that is a great question for the principal. And I mean, he kept it positive instead of like, I don't know, I guess that would be something, it was just more, that is a great question. I think you need to reach out to the principal, but it just kind of kept it positive.
The hard part was not saying, I actually want to know too, which is why
I
it was
know.
easier for me to say that. Because I don't want.
Let me know what he says when you.
I think they should have a dedicated nurse as well.
So share your scenario.
My scenario was my grandson was recently diagnosed with diabetes and is and his grade school does not have a dedicated nurse. I need one hired right away. I need you to get one hired. How will you ensure that he receives the care he needs?
Is the grandmother the custodial parent?
How would we know? Yeah.
What's that?
So technically, you probably can't have the conversation. Would it change your mind if the grandmother were the mayor? Who's reaching out to you?
I think it's good in these opportunities to use them to remind people like we don't make these level of decisions. So it's a great question for XYZ person that does make these decisions. We're not involved at that level, because then you're also taking the opportunity to educate somebody in the community on what the school board's role is, because I think a lot of people clearly don't really understand what it is we actually do.
Yes. How many months out of the year is your grandchild in school? Roughly.
8 to 9.
And you don't have a nurse. Do you have a nurse at home? I mean, right? I don't want to belabor that or make fun of, but the reality is your child's probably going to be in a place at some point in time also without some sort of supervision or a medical professional present. And the other part is, and I'm not saying you would necessarily say that to the mayor, but when you start to pull those pieces apart, because we become so reactive, because I don't know about you all, but 8.5 times out of 10, I feel like I'm the one being attacked, and maybe attacked is a little aggressive, right? But I'm like, but I don't know anything about this, right? So giving yourself time to even also just catch your breath and think about, wait a minute, Grandma, you've got the best of intentions, but that's a conversation for Mom with the building, right? And a conversation at the building. I made that one extra icky for you, so sorry. Catherine, you said you liked something that Brent said to you in your situation. Will you share that?
Yeah, it's kind of similar, but I thought mine was about daughter being bullied, and first things Brent said was, I'm unaware of the details of that because that information is, private between your daughter and the school personnel. And I just thought that was good to say. It's good to know, like, I as a parent would want to know that. I wouldn't want the school sharing my daughter's private information with everyone, and that information's private and her privacy's protected. And that's also why he can't, directly comment on anything related to that, but encouraged, me to go talk to the principal about the situation and The answer to my question was, when's the next school board meeting so I can complain about how unresponsive it is, and he gave me that information too, even though I was gonna come up and be mean to him.
Anybody's welcome.
3 minutes.
All are welcome.
And yeah, all are welcome. Come, but just so you know, you get 3 minutes and we can't respond to you in that forum, right? Our best conversation is what does that dialogue look like? Because that's hard too. I can remember feeling just like a bobblehead. You would listen to somebody and you'd say thank you, but can't. It's not a conversation.
You're natural, you want to respond, like you said earlier. You just want to, but you just can't.
So I would encourage you to think about, continue finding ways to practice. And if you ever want scenarios, you ever want my little fancy deck of cards, because there's some more that you didn't get, it would be completely appropriate to say, we're going to take 15 minutes at a board meeting and let's talk through one together. Read it out loud, let your public hear. And talk about how would you respond? What would make this hard? Does it make a difference if it's the mayor? Does it make a difference if it's your next door neighbor? Does it make a difference if it's somebody you don't like, right? All those pieces. It's okay for the public to also hear you talk through it's not easy to respond to some of these questions sometimes. That piece of honesty, I think, is a really healthy thing to also have a conversation about. Or we wish we could fix it sometimes, but that's not what our responsibility is. And by the way, do you have all the information to fix it? Most likely you don't. If your staff, if your principals, if those that sat next to you tonight walked out of the room and said, maybe they already do, I know that no matter what happens, the board always has my back. It doesn't mean the board's always happy with what I bring. It doesn't mean they always like my suggestion, but the board will follow and honor our policy. Do you think that would be a good thing?
Yes.
Don't we all want that? And don't you want to know that the staff will always say, we fully trust the board to make all the decisions and they're gonna ask us when we need more information? Versus that board doesn't even know what they're doing. They just say yes to everything. Or they don't even say no when to say. They don't even know when to say no. Right? My wish for you is those are the pieces that you strive for, that you are always talking about with each other, of those 5 key areas that we know that research tells us that when boards are really successful here, we're going to be really successful here in student achievement, that there's a tie and that you keep pushing to that. That also gives less attention to some of the things that are harder to deal with and not quite as fun, I will say. I have 2 things for you before you leave tonight. One is I would ask you if you would share with me what's a key takeaway you have after tonight's work. And you can just popcorn it out if you're comfortable with that, and I'm going to scribble some answers down.
I wish we would have had this a year ago when I was first new onto the board. It's great to just practice some of these scenarios.
I really like the analogy of steering versus rowing, and really trying to stay at that balcony level view and asking questions so that Brian can do what he needs to do to make sure we are meeting our district's goals.
Being okay not to always have the answer. Knowing that it's okay to pause and say that I need to do some further research or find out more information about something.
I liked our vision section. That was interesting. I don't know that we've ever really explicitly talked about that before.
I think talking about how we communicate with each other and with Brian is a good key takeaway, and maybe something we need to even look at a little bit more.
Those are awesome. All right. I'm going to ask you to I'm gonna share a video with you that I personally really like. It is a video that IASB we created it. It came out of some of the research around Lighthouse, but it is your work. It is 3 minutes and 20 seconds in length. That's a long time to sit still, especially at this hour of the night. What I would ask you is that you take a nice deep breath and you watch the faces of these students and what you're about to see. And I just want you to think about, I watch it each time before I come, and I think that you might say, that could be a PV student, that could be a PV student. And I just want you to let the video wash over you and think about what we talked about tonight. Okay? Oh, before I do that, this is not paying close enough attention. If you don't do this work, if you don't do this incredibly important work at the table, what's at stake? What will it cost you if you don't do the work?
District.
This? Or how about this? Or maybe this student? Or these students? These students? Or maybe that student and staff member? Those are all your kids. They are counting on your incredible work that you do to help lead the district, which, by the way, you are doing a fabulous job of. But sometimes when we see our own kids and their faces, it makes a difference. All right, here's your video. students be your students? I'm a big sap. I never get tired of watching that video. Here's my last request for you. The very last page of your packet. And remember, on the back side, it has information about your annual board award. So if you want to read that between now and the next 30 days, take a picture. Or text me and tell me you want me to send it to you. Then I want you to rip off this last page. Because on the other side, we're going to write a little quick letter to yourself. You just gave me 2 hard hours tonight after a really long day. If you walk out of the room and you do nothing different, thank you for your 2 hours, but that was probably a waste of your time. You probably have other things you could do. What do you want to commit to doing in the next 30 days that you want to think about to be the very best board member that you will continue to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to be reminded about tonight? While you're writing, I'm going to come give you a blank envelope. When you're done writing this letter to yourself, be sure and say, "Dear Doug, love Doug." And only Doug, everybody else has to use their own name. You're going to fold it up. You're going to put it in the envelope I give you. You're going to seal it. I don't want to read your letter. And then you're going to address it to yourself. And in about 30 days, you're going to get it in your mailbox. And the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to be completely freaked out that you have a letter to yourself in your own handwriting. And then you go, "Oh, yeah, I know what that is." Will be a check-in between you and you. I'm not reading it unless you send your letter to somebody else. No one else is reading it. As you finish your letters up, I just want to say thank you for tonight. I know it's been a really long day for some of you. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the work that you each do at the table. I know it's not always easy. You know, when you're waiting for SSA, not that I would tell you that in the last 20 years it only happened once on time. But all of the things and the decisions you make and the phone calls you answer, and I am just so incredibly grateful for what you do, and I hope you know that I'm always rooting for you just 45 miles away or something. And if there's anything I can do, have my contact information, please reach out. And Doug, it is now your responsibility to bring 3 more board members along with you. That is what I have to say about that. Now that you have your board award.
You put it in your letter.
It's just a 30-day thing, right?
Yeah, that's just your 30 days.
So, yeah.
You will, if you come to convention, I should say when you all come to
Yes,
convention,
we
in
are
November.
all coming to convention.
Beautiful. Then you get an individual picture. We hire a photographer that comes in with your certificate. You get an individual picture, and then when you have your board award, they will also take a picture for that as well. And then I would tell you, when you have your board award, make a big deal of it at a board meeting. And if you know somebody from IASB, call her and say, will you come present it again to our board and love us up at a board meeting and tell everyone how wonderful you are, and she will do that in a heartbeat. So those are all your things you have to do. All right? I'm gonna take your envelopes, and don't forget you still have to.
We do. And with that, team, I just want to say thank you for your facilitation by leading us through this. And like Adrian said, we probably should have done this a year ago.
Yeah.
We'll schedule another one here. But again, just great learning, great thinking, and appreciate your questions and your role modeling and thoughts that you can share with us. And to all of you board members, thank you for the long night tonight. Thank you for your conversations. It was very nice to listen to all of you. I mean, when you start back there, I know Brett, you joked about being committed to excellence, but that's really who we are. Came out in your vision statements about why we care about kids and what we do. It was fun from a consistency standpoint to listen to your responses, that we are all rowing together in the right direction. Even though you might be steering us, I'm rowing you. But it is very well done, and I appreciate what you do for our kids every day. And that's why I think we've been so consistent over the years with success, is because it's good board members like all of you who care about kids. We put our personalized things aside, and we do great things. So thank you for your hours and all the emails and phone calls and all the things that you receive, but I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being our captain. Along with that, as Brian said, and referring to Adrian's comment about the training, I did talk to Tammy about, what other trainings are out there. Is there something else that we may be interested in? So I'll be sending you guys all an email and giving you maybe some ideas of some future trainings we could do. Or maybe there's something that will not be on my list of ideas that you would want to do otherwise. So this is something we can incorporate and do it, tack it on to maybe a short meeting another time. So with
I want
that,
to say thank you to Heather for sticking around and
Yes.
doing this with us, and
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
Heather.
Debbie as well, so thank you.
So with that, our next meeting is March 24th at 6 p.m. and then April 14th at 6 p.m. And then I want to also remind you that in November is our convention, and I think we will start adding the convention date to the board information, just as a constant reminder. So
Just as a heads up, I won't be there at the March 24th.
March 24th, okay. All right, thanks for letting us know.